From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo. This is From the South. Venezuela's ambassador to South Africa says it's comforting to have allies in Africa in the wake of political tension fueled by the United States and its allies in her country. Speaking from Pretoria, our correspondent Matupa Madlachie files this report.
The political tensions in Venezuela have gone beyond the country's borders, with nations expressing support for President Nicolas Maduro. The support comes against a wave of disapproval from the United States and its allies. Venezuela's foreign mission in South Africa says there's an attempted coup in Venezuela.
This is a coup d'etat. This is a coup d'etat in development in Venezuela in this moment, with United States in front of the coup d'etat, and with the leader of the opposition in this moment, Juan Guaido, of the United States. And unfortunately, some countries in Latin America follow them.
The head of the Venezuela's mission in South Africa says attempts by the United States to destabilize Latin America is a pattern that reminds her of other regions where the U.S. got involved in domestic politics.
This was the same in Iraq, was the same in Libya, in all the countries that when U.S. intervened. It's the same plan.
When asked why the United States was keen on removing the current government in Venezuela, she says the reasons are no secret.
The response is simple: our natural resources. Our natural resources and the political difference between Trump and Nicolás Maduro. But also is the same difference with the Commander Chavez. The problem is we are a democratic government walking to socialism, and we have a lot of natural resources.
Ambassador Moreno Marida lamented that mainstream media did not cover the Venezuela story objectively, and this, she says, causes even more tensions.
The media only show the information the information of the opposition, and it's not true. And yesterday I spoke with one journalist here, and I asked him why you didn't show the images in Venezuela with the people in support of our President Nicolás Maduro.
Venezuela's government believes it's the overwhelming sanctions from the supporters of self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido that are worsening the situation. Matuba Madlachie, Telesur, Pretoria.
Thousands of people in Venezuela have marched to defend state-owned oil company PDVSA against the new sanctions imposed by the U.S. PDVSA workers say the country will come together with courage and moral strength to defend the state oil company and its U.S.-based refinery, Citgo. The president of the National Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, addressed the gathering and rejected the sanctions.
They'll send planes. They will drop bombs and kill people. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter to them at all. Today they could fly over in a plane and drop a bomb over here where we are. And for what reason? Because we are Chavista. When the United States decides to bomb, they make victims of children, hospitals, schools. They stop at absolutely nothing. I ask for people to be conscious. Those Venezuelans who are asking for an intervention against our nation, those who are asking for military intervention, at the time of an intervention, they will be regarded as an enemy of the nation.
The Venezuelan people should be aware that the oil industry belongs to us. Profits belong to all the Venezuelan people. And for that reason, the empire should know that if they come here, to the land of Bolivar, they are going to find people who will defend their country with their lives if necessary.
Our correspondent in Caracas, Luis Tavera, brings us more.
Workers from the state-owned oil company PDVSA are marching in Caracas to reject the sanctions imposed by Washington against state-owned oil company and transnational Citgo. PDVSA workers say that these new measures are just aimed at stealing their resources and taking over the assets of the country. Meanwhile, the foreign minister, Jorge Arriaza, has denounced a media war campaign that is trying to show that the government doesn't have any support. But the foreign minister says that the armed forces and the people have taken to the streets across the country to show their support to the Bolivarian government and Venezuela's constitution.
We thank Luis for that report. And Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has denounced a media war against Venezuela, but peaceful scenes on the streets of Caracas have unraveled the plans of those on social media who hope to show Venezuela as a country of chaos. Our correspondent tells us what the people in the streets think of this media war.
Popular support is still evident in the streets, even when facing a situation hoping to bring down Venezuelan democracy. The people are against the Venezuelan coup d'etat in their country.
International community, listen to us. We choose our president, Nicolás Maduro.
Social inclusion is another achievement that grandparents will continue defending.
As you can imagine, people are in streets defending Nicolás.
On the other side of the city, the opposition held protests for 2 hours despite low attendance. Everything was calm, with all the democratic guarantees that protect freedom of expression. Meanwhile, the revolutionary forces showed their strength and say that certain sectors of the opposition are playing with Venezuelan sovereignty.
They have evidence agreements with international business. They have supported the proclamation of an illegitimate president, usurping the post of president for which Maduro was elected. He has been chosen for 6 years, and he was elected by the people following the death of Comandante Hugo Chavez.
Venezuela will continue on the path of peace and confirm that there are clear constitutional means to preserve the country's sovereignty. They don't want interference.
And the Venezuelan authorities have rejected the European Parliament recognizing opposition leader Juan Guaidó as interim president. 429 European lawmakers voted in favor of the measure and 104 against. The Parliament is now urging all EU governments to follow suit. During a televised address on Wednesday, the President of the Constituent National Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, rejected the moves by the EU to support coup efforts.
But how irresponsible of the European Union? They're committed to invasion and bombing. They don't care about their own citizens who live here. There are many who live here who arrived in the year 1950 and onward. They have their roots and businesses here, but they don't care about them. Today, when they make calls to invade Venezuela, it doesn't matter where the Spaniards are living. It doesn't matter to them if an international coalition comes to drop bombs over Caracas. In many neighborhoods of Caracas, you will find families which are descendants of Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese, and Germans.
The European Union will lead an international group with some South American nations to urge Venezuela to hold new elections. The bloc is also considering new economic sanctions against the Bolivarian country.
There is full unity, and I see a couple of ministers in the room that I think can confirm that. There is full unity on the assessment, first of all, of the objective that the European Union and its member states have, which is the one of having, for Venezuelans, as soon as possible, free democratic presidential elections with international guarantees, and to have a peaceful and democratic outcome of this crisis.
Moving on to Cuba, where the 4th International Conference for World Balance is taking place in capital Havana. Participants of the 4-day event have discussed intercultural dialogue, the integration of new social movements, and the push for solidarity in Latin America and the Caribbean. The conference also showcased a debate on taking action in the face of a crisis based on the work of Latin American thinkers like Simón Bolívar and José Martí. Our correspondent Ali Fernandez from Havana has been following the conference and has the latest details.
The last day of the 4th International Conference for World Balance is underway in the Convention Center of Havana. One of the main topics that grabbed the attention of the more than 600 participants from all around the world is the political situation in Venezuela. They are discussing what the intervention of the United States and its allies means for Venezuela and the Bolivarian Revolution. Most participants are strongly rejecting these actions and measures against Venezuela, and are analyzing and trying to understand how this international campaign against Venezuela and its president came to be. Regarding this topic, members of Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly and Professor Adán Chávez gave a talk yesterday. Another important topic of the conference is the international media and how some international media outlets have been channeling the narrative of right-wing governments and to target the Venezuelan government. One of the most interesting talks regarding this topic will be held by the French professor and journalist Igancio Ramonet, who will talk about media war in the age of fake news. Another topic that will be touched upon today is Puerto Rico's plea for independence.
And now let's learn more about this conference that also coincides with the 166th anniversary of the birth of Cuban intellectual José Martí.
These intellectuals and social leaders arrived in Havana from all around the world. Their mission, to find new paths for dialogue and peace in Latin America. And in light of this, leaders held discussions about ongoing attempts by the U.S. to intervene in Venezuela's affairs in a bid to destabilize the South American country.
The participants are willing to help our Bolivarian revolution. They say they will do whatever is required, even to defend us against any military intervention. It is not what we want, but we are ready to fight for our ideology and our revolution.
Also on the agenda was a discussion about 60 years of the Cuban Revolution. The Bolivarian forces were called to resist the coup d'etat and to defend the legitimate government of Nicolás Maduro.
We are calling for dialogue in Venezuela. What we cannot allow is that someone comes to take office illegally. Maduro won thanks to the votes of the Venezuelan people. That opposition leader barely had thousands of votes in the parliamentary elections, while Maduro got millions.
The Spanish member of the European Parliament, Javier Couce, says the European Union has worked as an ally with the Venezuelan opposition to dismantle through the use of undemocratic means the Bolivarian Revolution.
The European Union has acted as a mouthpiece of Venezuela's opposition. Different European bodies have worked to give a voice to Maduro's opposition instead of promoting a peaceful coexistence.
Social leaders, historians, and professors agreed that the goal is to dominate Venezuela's natural resources and at the same time put an end to the many advances made in the country and the wider region. Nicaragua is also being discussed at the conference. That and the call for the release of Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, plus the main challenges of the left wing now that the new neoliberal governments are in power.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Hundreds of indigenous people and activists are marching in 15 different cities in Brazil. They are rallying to defend the rights of their communities and denounce the increasing threats they continue to face today. Fears are on the rise, especially in Brazil, where the government is putting its economic interest over the protection of indigenous communities and their lands.
We want peace. All we want is peace. We want peace in our lands. We want to be able to live without people massacring us. And we just want to be left alone. We don't really want anything else than that. We just want our own space. We're not asking for too much. We just want to be able to live in peace.
I'm from the oldest indigenous reservation in Brazil. It was founded in the 1600s in Pernambuco. And I'm here today to show that as long as there are Indians standing, we're not going to give up fighting for our rights. And we're not going to bow to anybody above us, only God. The sky is the limit.
Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Muir, has more.
I'm underneath the Mosque Art Museum in downtown Sao Paulo, where shortly a large large protest for indigenous rights is scheduled to kick off in São Paulo, in around 15 other cities around Brazil, and several cities around the world. Now, the protests have been called in response to Jair Bolsonaro, the new right-wing Brazilian president's repressive policies against indigenous peoples. In one of his first days in office, he turned over control of delegating authority over indigenous reservations to the Agriculture Ministry, which is dominated by agribusiness interests and the descendants of former slave owners and plantation-owning strongmen who've been responsible for most of the atrocities committed against indigenous people during the last 500 years. The name of the protest is not one more drop of indigenous blood spilled. And there's all kinds of unions and social movements coming out today in solidarity with Brazil's indigenous population.
We thank Brian Muir for that report. Firefighters in Brazil are using dogs to continue their search for bodies in the Vale Dam disaster. 5 days after the dam collapsed, the search for victims continues, while residents mourn the victims. The dogs search and find victims thanks to body odors. The animals have found most of the remains. 99 fatalities have been confirmed, and 259 people remain missing.
We started the work this morning. We had already 3 identifications, in this place here and another 2 points a little higher up, closer to the dam.
St. Lucia's government easily defeated the no-confidence motion which the opposition brought against the Prime Minister, Alan Chesney, following a marathon session in the Parliament. Our correspondent in K-Street's Alison Kentnish has the details.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chesney has survived a no-confidence vote against him in the country's parliament. After an over 10-hour-long debate on the motion that went into the wee hours of Wednesday morning, 11 government MPs voted in support of their leader, while 6 opposition MPs supported the motion. In the end, the ruling United Workers' Party used its majority in the House to hand Chesney the victory.
The motion before the House now is that the question be now put. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. No. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
While the motion was defeated, leader of the opposition Philip J. Pierre told reporters that it had achieved its goal. He says the party knew that it would not win the war, but won the battle of getting the public to listen, as he used the parliamentary platform to outline the reasons why the opposition believes that Chesney has failed as a leader.
The public of St. Lucia saw that ministers and members of the United Workers' Party who said awful things about the Prime Minister in private and at his back came to Parliament and in a show of so-called togetherness voted for him. We have no issue with that, but our point was made. A lot of the lies that were said yesterday, we can tell you that they were not true, like the issue relating to the minister and his wife being involved in the business. I have the documents which I can make available to you, and I leave it to you to prove whether it's right or wrong. I think that our struggle continues.
Meanwhile, Chesney's team has argued that he has been a good leader who has made inroads in developing education and infrastructure.
They will not only lose the vote, but they will lose this vote, Mr. Speaker, comprehensively and commandingly, Mr. Speaker, as all members on this side will be giving the Prime Minister their tacit support.
Supporters of the ruling United Workers' Party and the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party converged outside the House of Assembly to support their MPs. The no-confidence motion was filed by the leader of the opposition in November 2018. The opposition has vowed to move into stage 2 of its mission, which includes a national public meeting on January 31st in the heart of St. Lucia's capital city, Castries. Alison Kentish, Telesur, St. Lucia.
Scientists believe an over 400-year-old mummy in Ecuador could hold the key to know how a rheumatic disease became widespread around the world. The mummy shows traces of rheumatic polyarthritis, a nowadays very common inflammatory disease of the joints that originates from that American continent. This mummy could hold clues on how it became a global epidemic by hybridization after Spanish colonists arrived to the continent.
It is a very interesting disease because it's a common disease now, but its origin is in America, before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. And this mummy, the mummy of this man, Juana's mummy, may be the missing link. It may be the mummy that will allow us to understand how this disease, which was originally American, subsequently became a global disease.
Internet giant Google is paying tribute to late Argentinian singer Mercedes Sosa on the 54th anniversary of her first performance. On January 31st, 1965, the emblematic artist sang at the Cosquín stage in the Argentinian city of Córdoba. Sosa is recognized as one of the most important artists of Latin America, not only for her voice, but also for her political activism, which forced her to live in exile during the military dictatorship. Sosa passed away in 2009. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. At least 14 Palestinians have been injured after Israeli soldiers opened fire on them during protests in the Gaza Strip. The protesters were taking part in demonstrations organized by the International Committee to break the siege on Gaza. Over 200 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli security forces since March last year. Lebanese political parties have reached a deal to form a government of national unity, putting an end to months of uncertainty. The new government will include most of Lebanon's rival factions who have been negotiating over the makeup of the cabinet since last year. Prime Minister Saad Hariri was tasked to form the new government after last year's parliamentary elections, but the share of ministerial quotas delayed the government's formation.
It has been a difficult political period, especially after the elections, and we must turn the page and start working.
Pope Francis's upcoming visit to the United Arab Emirates has brought joy and hope to the Christian community in the Middle East. Pope Francis will make history next week by being the first head of the Catholic Church to visit the region where Christians face numerous restrictions. The Vatican said the Pope's visit to the region aims at encouraging tolerance and harmony among people who belong to different religions.
This will help the Gulf and the whole world to understand that there should be a respect of each religion, and it's not that one is better than the other one, it's just that we have one God, and that's it.
47 stranded migrants finally came to shore in Italy after being blocked at sea for 12 days. The migrants had been trapped on board the vessel ever since their rescue off the Libyan coast. The standoff finally came to an end after 9 EU countries agreed to take them in. Italy's right-wing government has closed its ports to humanitarian vessels in an attempt to force EU partners to take more of those rescued. Aid workers in Libya say little is being done for migrants trapped in the country and blocked from crossing the Mediterranean Sea by EU-backed measures. More than 5,000 migrants are currently detained in Libya in precarious conditions. Thousands of others are present in the country. Migrants are frequently exposed to torture, forced labor, and rape. And finally, the United Nations has called Morocco and the Polisario Front to have a meeting in March over the Western Sahara conflict. The meeting is aimed at promoting dialogue between the parties. Morocco and the Polisario Front resumed talks in December for the first time in 6 years. This conflict started after Spain abandoned the colony and Morocco occupied the territory. The Polisario Front is calling for a self-determination referendum. The meeting will also be attended by Algeria and Mauritania. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.